Katamari doesn't present itself as the most thematically deep game. Sure, it's unique in aesthetic, controls, and mechanics. It's quirky, fun, and approachably challenging. And everyone knows it's got a superb soundtrack. But are there any life lessons we can extract from the game about rolling up stuff to make stars? If you're willing to listen to me really stretch and overanalyze, of course there are. To kick things off, we can consider the entire motivating force behind all this rolling. The king of all cosmos, the main character's dad, screws up and destroys all the stars in the sky. The actual consequences of an empty sky aren't apparent though. Realistically, suddenly vaporizing multiple stars would have unfathomably grand fallout that probably an astrophysicist would have to tell us about. It would have been apocalyptic. However, this is the world of Katamari, none of that applies. So if saving the universe isn't the driving force of our rolling, what is? Well, throughout the games, you'll recreate stars, constellations, and planets with themes. This is presented most directly in the sequel, We Love Katamari. Even before that though, the king notes that the sky is lacking certain qualities. Maybe we can rectify the problem by creating celestial bodies that exude these qualities. That is the problem, right? The sky doesn't have enough grace, or freshness, or mystery. Are we really doing this because the sky lacks pizzazz? Personally, whenever I play the game, those things aren't in the forefront of my mind. Some of the levels do emphasize themes better than others by explicitly incorporating into the gameplay though. For example, some levels are only considering how many of a certain category of item you roll up, like animals or flowers. At the end of the day though, I'm simply happy to be rolling. So, if the universe is not in peril, and rectifying the vibes of the cosmos feels more like a bonus, why are we really wadding up a bunch of objects and sentient beings into a ball? Because our dad told us to. In the sequel, it's transitively because strangers told us to, but we'll get into that later. The king tells us to make a star, to remedy his mistake by the way, and we do it. This could be analogous to how so many people live under the direction of their parental figures. At different ages, our parents choose our food, our clothes, our school, where we spend our free time. Even as we gain independence gradually, we still follow some of our parents' rules. The influence of our parents doesn't suddenly disappear when we move out of the house. It often persists even after they die. Sure, you might be content with your current career, but how did you get there? Did you study hard because your parents told you to? Did you pursue a degree that you thought they would approve of? If so, that doesn't mean you should be ashamed. Your parents' direction probably had some benefits. You might like where you ended up with their influence guiding you. Just like you might learn to love rolling a Katamari, but the main reason you started, and practiced, was because the king told you to. I find this comforting. Some people rebel against their parents, desperate for independence, afraid to be committed to the path laid out before them. Even if you do find yourself a bit too deeply stuck in a life someone else directed you towards, maybe you could find your own personal way within it. There's more than one way to roll a Katamari after all, and you can always turn things around. If you feel trapped sometimes, don't forget that you can always create something beautiful, something of your own making, despite what got you started. As previously mentioned, this extends beyond parents. The fans of the king ask for favors in We Love Katamari. The king then passes the burden of fulfilling these favors on to you. At the end of the day, you're trying to get that ball as big as you can within a few minutes to make some random person happy. In reality, being a people pleaser can become cyclical. You go out of your way to help people, they note that you're willing to help, and they're more likely to rely on your kindness in the future. If you become known for being a people pleaser, people will knowingly or unknowingly take advantage of that. People might start to see you as the person who's always willing to help despite maybe needing some help yourself. You'll probably tend to take on more responsibilities and stressors than you should. How often do we put pressure on ourselves simply for the benefit of others, potentially to our own detriment? I mean, if you're trying to help people, obviously that's respectable. It's different though if you're bending over backwards, over and over to appease people who might not care about your needs or all the stress you're under. In We Love Katamari, you're not doing a simple favor for these people, although sometimes it's framed as if you are. If you don't complete your task within a certain time frame or your Katamari isn't up to snuff, your dad shoots you with lasers while berating you. Your well-being, physically and mentally, is at stake. Again, I recognize there are usually many reasons why we do things that aren't 100% to our own benefit. Obviously, people should help each other. However, we all need boundaries. The fans in We Love Katamari make me reflect on how often the motivation for helping others might boil down to appeasing strangers, maintaining an unnecessary reputation, perhaps being selfless to a fault. The prince is known for making stars in the original game at the command of his father. Now fans expect him to do the same for them. Okay, even if this overanalyzing of the motivation behind rolling a Katamari doesn't resonate with you, Katamari has a little more to say about life. Each Katamari level is like a period of time in life. Now, I'm not saying that each level correlates to a specific part of life. Instead, the progression in general reminds me of life's progression. When you start a new level, things are big and daunting. You don't even know which way to go. You can dive right into it, throw caution to the wind, and maybe risk some consequences. Maybe you start out timidly, take a more calculated route, try to get a grasp on what's unfolding around you. Either way, you'll progress. You get bigger, feel more confident in the space, and what used to be challenges, or even threats, are now insignificant. Do you remember your first day of high school? Chances are you were in a new, unfamiliar building with unknown people. You probably struggled to find a certain classroom. Maybe you had a hard time navigating the crowded halls. It might have been your first time using a locker with a combination lock. Compare those feelings to your later high school years. You know the building or campus like the back of your hand. You know a lot of the people, no more trouble finding classrooms. You've probably learned how to go with, or even overcome, the flow in the halls. Unlocking your locker uses muscle memory instead of conscious thought. The challenges of early high school look so small later in high school. You could argue a lot of games do something along those lines. You get stronger with time, and get to feel the progression of your strength relative to old challenges. What makes the experience in Katamari different is how it ends. Just as you're really feeling triumphant, the level screeches to a halt. The king lazily judges your Katamari. Unless it's truly spectacular, he tends to not give you too much fanfare for your performance. That said, you might not even be listening to him. You might instead be beholding your work. Look, there's that big thing you rolled up. From the moment you laid eyes on that bad boy, you knew you wanted to make sure you rolled it up before the level was over. Look at that thing sticking out. Remember when you rolled it up and it made moving around the level awkward for a bit? Maybe you even used it like a pole vault to get somewhere. Oh, and those... Hey, wait. He's turning it into a star. Oh. Your whole experience with that level, your screw-ups, your successes, every unique thing you picked up, has been homogenized into... this. I'm as happy as anyone about repopulating the cosmos, but something doesn't feel quite right there. The cosmic bodies you create admittedly get significantly more personality in We Love Katamari, but they still aren't representative of your experience. Yes, they calculate the percentages of different types of things you collected, but that feels far from sufficient. A lot of levels will end up producing similar rankings simply based on the composition of the level. For example, I played the same level a few times, and here were my results. Some levels are more likely to have this flaw than others. Oh man, I picked up a lot of flowers in the flower level? Gee thanks, King of all Cosmos. To stick with the high school analogy, a star, or planet, is equivalent to your diploma. Sure, this was the end goal, even though you probably weren't thinking about it 100% of the time. The category rankings could be your GPA, final transcripts, or your superlatives. These things are nice, but they're merely the tip of the iceberg when it comes to representing that era of your life. Your diploma can't describe the feeling of your high school heartbreak, grueling sports practices, or late nights with your friends. All the drama, the adrenaline of finishing your homework right before it's due, the atmosphere of the cafeteria, none of these are reflected. It feels odd to be so invested in a certain chapter of your life, only to have to move on with only a generic keepsake to symbolize it all. Then you move on to the next level, or next stage of your life. The cycle repeats. The rush of novelty, mastering the circumstances, a myriad of special moments littered throughout, and then the unsatisfactory capstone to it all. This will happen again and again with different periods of your life. College, your first full-time job, maybe even each decade or so of your life in general. Sooner or later you realize, as cliché as it may be, that it's about the journey, not the destination. In life and in Katamari. I don't spend too much time looking over the stars I created in Katamari games. Maybe if I got a shooting star or a particularly high percentage constellation, I'll take a moment to reflect and feel proud. What I'm really playing the game for is the rolling. In the same way, we don't live for the diplomas, promotions, or birthday parties. We live for the learning, the struggle, the day-to-day ups and downs. Life isn't simply our accolades, just as the sky isn't simply the stars. It's the experiences, the challenges, the feelings. And plenty of helpless innocence that we rolled up.